Hey guys, it's Oluvids, and I have an interesting topic for today. So originally, I was going to be just covering the whole Game Informer interview from Tetsuya Nomura, just going on. It was like a lot of random questions. It wasn't even just Kingdom Hearts 4 stuff, but lots of general questions all over the series and all that. However, I didn't realize that I didn't press the record button, so that's kind of out the window. I'm going to be covering it in the most important topics in separate videos and going deeper in them. So the first one I want to do is the main one that I've seen being talked about on Twitter, which involves the whole Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts discourse, all that's coming up every once in a while. And I want to make a case for why it's completely understandable that people want them back and why I want them back. I think some of the, not exactly like people not wanting them back, but like some of the points people bring, I think, where it's like, oh, you shouldn't be asking for them back, or like if you care about this so badly, just play Final Fantasy or whatever, or oh, they're just cameos or whatever, or if you're still hung up on them, you know what I mean, like why that doesn't really make sense and why it's just wrong fully. So first I'm just going to tell you what's said in the interview from Nomura. Now keep in mind, don't like just like read the entire quote, and I'm going to say the entire quote so that you don't actually like get like misinformation or anything. So here's the new Game Informer interview, and the question says, fans have been very concerned about the lack of Final Fantasy characters in newer entries. Do you still want to dial down the amount of them in the series, or is Kingdom Hearts 4 a chance to bring in some more cameos? Nomura said, I understand that there aren't many Final Fantasy characters in Kingdom Hearts 3. One of the things I want to clear up is that a lot of fans are saying Kingdom Hearts is a collaboration between Disney characters and Final Fantasy characters, but I really feel like that's not the basic concept of Kingdom Hearts. That's not exactly what Kingdom Hearts is. When we released the first title, we only had a few original Kingdom Hearts characters. When they were interacting with really well-known, beloved Disney characters, I felt nobody really knew these characters, so it was harder for them to stand their grounds just yet. And so we had a lot of Final Fantasy characters involved to lend a hand for everyone to get to know the original Kingdom Hearts characters better. Now there's many original characters in Kingdom Hearts that are so well beloved, and people want to see more of those characters. With Kingdom Hearts 3, since we did have so many original characters, it was hard to find room for including more Final Fantasy characters. We're trying to find a good balance for that. Some of the fans were concerned and weren't too happy and wanted to see more of the Final Fantasy characters. That's something we're definitely thinking about. But just with the sheer number of original characters we have now, it's hard to say what the exact balance is going to be and how it will play out in Kingdom Hearts 4. We can't really give you a firm reply on this just yet. So before anyone says that's confirming no Final Fantasy characters for KH4, that's just misinformation. That's not true. He didn't say, he just says we can't really say yet because we're trying to figure it out. So we don't know. There could be. I think, given the whole discourse, or maybe just my perspective on it, what I want for this series at least. So, okay, I'm not going to argue with the director himself, where he's like, okay, Kingdom Hearts isn't like a Final Fantasy and Disney crossover. Still, I think that at the very least, the characters we have in KH1, and as well as Tifa added in KH2, do still deserve to show up, and they're not just cameos. So I guess I could go through all the different appearances we had throughout the series. So first, in Kingdom Hearts 1, we had a good chunk of characters in the first one, and honestly, I recently played this, so it's not like my memory's hazy or anything. I recently just streamed Kingdom Hearts 1 on twitch.tv/Oluvids, and playing through the game, I mean, they don't just feel like cameos where it's like, oh wow, look, Final Fantasy guy is in this game, wow, I need to buy this. No, they feel like they naturally fit in the Kingdom Hearts world. Like, and when I first played the game, I didn't even know about Final Fantasy. I didn't know there were Final Fantasy characters. And playing this again, I can see why. They don't feel like Final Fantasy characters. They kind of just blend into the world perfectly. They just feel like other Kingdom Hearts characters that are from a different world than your own, in terms of like Squall and them, that group. I only found out that they were Final Fantasy characters as I checked the journal and it said, oh yeah, they're from this, because the journal says where they're all originally from. So I'm speaking from someone who wasn't a Final Fantasy fan first. I was a Kingdom Hearts fan first before Final Fantasy and the Realms with You. Nowadays I'm a Final Fantasy fan, but that was after the fact. So I realized that like they're actually just like the support characters, the supporting cast for this game. They're not a cameo, they're supporting cast. I mean, you could say maybe Cloud's a cameo. Squall's group, that's literally the supporting cast for this game. Sure, you meet the other Disney characters, but I mean, most of them don't even know what's going on in the overall story. You just meet them in the world and you leave and you never see them again, in terms of like that game, KH1. Final Fantasy characters, they introduce you to the world of, like, the overall world of Kingdom Hearts, what the Keyblade is, the Heartless, what they are. all that stuff, how they destroy worlds. And then throughout the game, you do come back to Traverse Town and meet up with them to expand the lore and all that, expand the story. And they'll give you more tips and more what's going on. And their main conflict, you know, their whole thing is that their world got destroyed by Maleficent and all that. Hollow Bastion was their original world. And throughout the game, you're hearing more about, you know, their old world and what happened to it. And as, you know, they're playing, they're helping you out. You know, Kairi, you finally get Kairi back, and Sora's like, okay, well, I mean, I'm gonna put them with the Final Fantasy guys because they'll keep her safe. And they're really the only friends I got out here that know what's going on. And, you know, eventually, you know, Sid also helps out a lot. He helps you with the gummies, helps you fix your stuff. You don't go to Disney Castle, you go to Sid to fix that stuff. Without Sid, I mean, they wouldn't have been able to make it to Hollow Bastion. But eventually you get there, and of course a ton of really important story stuff goes down there. And then after you beat that, I mean, then the Final Fantasy characters can finally return home. They come on Sid's ship. They help you out a bit too. They even make a speech about how they're never going to forget Sora, because I mean, granted, Sora literally saved their world. Their world was lost to the Heartless, and he went in and saved it. So I mean, they're gonna be eternally grateful. Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, they were just a cameo. He's like, okay, hi Sora, bye Sora. I mean, he literally, like, throughout the whole game, you're hearing about how the world got destroyed, and he finally makes it there, and he saves that world. That's a pretty big deal, I think. And the characters, Final Fantasy characters, show up throughout the game, throughout the entire game. I would call them the support cast of the group, and then Traverse Town's kind of like your hub. And then if you want to go out of your way, like Cloud, you could say, okay, maybe you could say he's a cameo a bit, but if you go out of your way to do the secret stuff, you'll see that he has a kind of a story going on, a plotline outside of just his thing with Hades. There's also Sephiroth he's dealing with, and he's dealing with his own darkness and all that. And, you know, for now they fought, and we don't know how it's going to end, but, you know, that's the start of that plot line. Next, in Kingdom Hearts Chain of Memories, it's really just like a cameo. Like, they teach you kind of they kind of show you the concept of, like, oh, forgetting and all that, but honestly, in that game, all the Disney and Final Fantasy characters really don't matter, if I'm being honest. So that's like, okay, sure, they're just cameos there. And then Kingdom Hearts 2, we got Selphie, who is Kairi's friend. You know, maybe she's not super important to the plot. Alright, I can give you that. Squall, Cloud, the rest of that group. Tifa coming in. First of all, Tifa coming in, helping them look around for stuff, and also kind of adding a whole arc for Cloud, like kind of helping expand that. I think it's kind of a big deal. Squall and his group, first of all, introduce you to the fact that, yeah, there's an army of Heartless coming into Hollow Bastion, and they're starting to restore Radiant Garden, which, you know, if you don't remember, that's a pretty important world in the Kingdom Hearts series. So they're restoring that place and all that back to it was in, you know, Birth by Sleep time, and where they remember it from 9 years ago. And I mean, yeah, they're even the first place where you really encounter the organization, you know, Organization 13. They're dealing with that as well. It eventually leads to an entire war. It's insane. It leads to an entire war. You got the Final Fantasy character. They're defending their home, of course. I mean, what else? They're not just gonna sit there when the army of Heartless are coming in to fight them. And then you got Mickey going after Xemnas and all this crazy stuff. You gotta fight Demyx. You even got Stitch running around shooting people. It was kind of insane. It was huge. That is a huge moment in the entire series. All right. Not because not because, oh wow, they're from Final Fantasy. I'm not saying they're great because they're from Final Fantasy. I'm just saying they're great because they're great Kingdom Hearts characters. And they're a great supporting cast. Now, in the next few games, we don't really see them as much anymore. Days, you don't see them. You get like an Organization to Moogle, that's the most you get. That's from like a cameo. Birth by Sleep, it's kind of like a cameo too. Zack is there, like he has plot lines in there, but he's not super important to the overall plot. He's only in the like Olympus world, and after that you never see him again. Presumably he's dead or something. So yeah, you could say like, okay, that's like a cameo, sure. I don't think anyone's really asking for Zack to come back, so it's like whatever, sure. Recoded, same thing as Rechain, doesn't really matter that much. Dream Drop Distance, we had the ones with you and you're in the Dream Realm, so I mean, no one really complained that they weren't in Dream Drop Distance because they're in a Dream Realm, so it's like we're in a different thing. They're probably off doing something else. No problem there. Kingdom Hearts 3, they don't come back. And not until the DLC at least. And honestly, I don't really know any reason why they weren't in 3. I mean, sure, you don't have to have anyone in Olympus. Sure, whatever, you don't need anyone there. But I mean, the support crew of Hollow Bastion, I mean, don't you think they should be in the know on what's going on? The fact that the organization came back, I mean, I think that's important information, you know? I don't think you should just ignore them. Because what happens if one of them shows up in Hollow Bastion and do something and they're just like caught off guard? I mean, what do you want the guards? Do you want Alias and them to be their defenders, or would you rather Squall coming up with his gunblade? Now, granted, I'm not even saying like, oh yeah, I need Squall to come in at the end and fight Xehanort with the Keyblade. I don't even need them to be super like front Guardians of Light. I just need them to be a supporting cast. They're around, they're in the know, and they're trying to help out the best they can. And I mean, they could have done that. I mean, they went to Halabashi and went to Radiant Garden. They even bothered like hitting up those guys, seeing like, hey, is everything okay here? Is there any organization? They're back, by the way. They're trying to do something insane. They're trying to like restart. Well, they didn't know they were restarting the world, but like, hey, just a heads up. They could have at least showed up in a phone call. That's really all I needed. Like, just show up in a phone call. Like, hey, by the way, guys, the organization came back. Be careful, all right? They're like, all right, Sora. Like, hey, like, sorry, you sure you're up for this? And like, yeah, I have to. Like, I don't know. I'm not coming up with something super like insanely really good, but I mean, that's really all I needed. I don't even need them to be super like up front and center, but just for them to be around, because literally I'm not looking at it as like, where's my Final Fantasy cameos? I'm looking at it like, where's my support group from KH1? What are they doing now? I'm kind of interested, you know? Just like how someone's like, oh, I hope the Daishio comes back in 4 or is coming back in Phase 2. That's the same thing. That's exactly how I feel for Squall and them. What are those guys doing? I hope they come back. I hope they're doing alright. I mean, I'm not viewing them as cameos. I'm viewing them as Kingdom Hearts characters. Which, by the way, you can't really say, oh, well, if you want more of Cloud, just go play Final Fantasy VII. Cloud from Kingdom Hearts is not the same guy as Cloud from Final. They're not the same character at all. They're literally not the same character. I haven't played 8, so I can't say if he's different or not, but the Kingdom Hearts versions of these characters are not the same. The only exception would be the Worlds with You characters, which are like mostly the same. That's a whole separate video right there. And they're not as dire. Like, it's like, it would be cool if it comes back, but they don't have to come back. However, the Final Fantasy characters, they're literally like, they're on the same, I put them on the same tier as like Painter, Pence, Olette, Zexion these days. I mean, you know, I'm not like, granted, I'm a Final Fantasy fan now, but I'm not viewing it as like, oh, where's my cameos? I'm like, where's the support group? What's going on? And yeah, they came back in Limit Cut, which, yeah, that's what I expected them to do in 3. Like, at least come in to try to help bring Sora back. Yeah, like, if the guy that literally saved their world is in trouble, they're gonna want to like help him out. Like, they're eternally grateful for what he did. So yeah, of course you're gonna want to keep in touch with Sora and try to help him out in any way you can, try to bring him back. And I'd hope that in the next game they can still keep trying to do it. Sid's trying to work on his thing and the data thing and all that. I mean, I don't think there's any reason for them to not be in KH3. I mean, are Hainer, Pence, and Olette really like that much higher importance than your whole support group in KH1? I don't know. Yeah, like I don't really get why some people on Twitter like seem to be really against them coming back, or just like, I mean, if they don't care, that's their own thing, but you can't really not care for other people. Of course other people are gonna want them back. Maybe there's some people where it's like, oh, I want my Final Fantasy characters in because Final Fantasy. I'm pretty sure me and a lot of other people just want them back because they're cool characters that helped us out a lot in KH1 and KH2, and now they're just ejected out because they happen to be from another game. I mean, that's not really, you know, like literally just because they're from another game, now they're less relevant or less important. And I'm not even asking for like Zack to come back, not Yuna, Riku, and Pain. Not even, it would be nice to see them, but not even Selphie, Tidus, and Waka. It'd be great to see them grown up because they're different versions of those. There's no different characters, but you don't have to. They weren't your support group in KH1, so you don't have to. But at least the Radiant Garden guys, bring them back. Even in KH2, they gave Cloud a whole other plot line, kind of a cliffhanger, and I mean, maybe that's where they wanted to end it. Maybe Nomura was like, all right, this is just it. You never see Cloud ever again after this. I mean, I don't know. If they weren't that important, I don't think you'd give them a whole separate plot line going on too. But yeah, I mean, yes, they're not that important. Kingdom Hearts doesn't need them anymore, so we can throw away the whole support group from KH1. Anyway, you know, I don't mean to be negative. Like, if you don't want Final Fantasy, I don't care. That's your own opinion. But you shouldn't be thrown off when someone wants Final Fantasy back in Kingdom Hearts, those characters. It shouldn't be like, what? Why do you want them back, dude? So then, I mean, if it's weird to want them back, it should be weird to want Ventus, Roxas, and all those guys back, Isa, Axel, to want them back, because, I mean, they're just side characters, I guess. Anyway. So that's really all my main thoughts on Final Fantasy. And again, this article, I don't want you to think that this is saying Nomura doesn't want them back. They're even like, hey, we know you guys want them back, so we're gonna try to figure out what's going on. This is mainly towards like the fandom, where it's like it seems like they don't understand why people would want them in, or why people really want them back, or like, hey, where are they? What's going on? Why aren't they in 3? You know, like, I'm not even asking for Orin back. It's like, all right, he was in one world. That's whatever. The other guys, we need them back. I need them back at least. And if you want them back too, let me know in the comments. But anyway, thank you guys for watching, and leave a like and subscribe if you agree with what I said. If you for some reason like still am confused at why we want Final Fantasy characters back in Kingdom Hearts, I'm not even asking for them to add new characters. At least the guys from KH1 and Tifa added in as well. At least those, just bring them back, or like have them kind of be in the loop of like what's going on. But yeah, thank you guys for watching. Leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. If you didn't agree with me, leave it in the comments. If you did agree, also put that in the comments. And yeah, have a good day, and I'll be seeing you guys next time.